Effie Morales, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Now, in a recent interview, Brett Mahoney, who's the new showrunner of Power Book 2 Ghost, said the theme of Season 3 is all about betrayal, because loyalty and truth are far and few between. Episode 5 was also a huge turning point in terms of the reveal of the secrets that people had. Now, what we saw play out in that episode with Tariq coming face to face with Lauren really set the foundation of what we saw play out in episode 8. An episode where not only Effie and Cane found out Lauren is alive, but Effie being arrested for attempted murder. Now, episode 8 was a little different, because there was no classroom scene to set the theme of sacrifice, but I think we all know what it meant. But sacrifice came in a few different ways, from Tariq and Monet hatching a plan to get law enforcement off their backs, to Brayden revealing to Tariq Weston Holdings is a Ponzi scheme when he full well knows what the consequences are of messing with Monet's money.
Rule number 1, always pay the exact amount discussed.
Yep.
Rule number 2, make sure shit's on time. If you come up short, that's on you.
Monet wants her money delivered by Monday, and we all know she's not messing around in Season 3, and neither is Tariq St Patrick. He warned Lucas Weston, this whole world is a hood, and what would the consequences be for Lucas Weston if he did someone dirty on the streets? So why should the rules be any different if he's wearing a suit? Now, it was also a sad moment which will raise a few eyebrows, but I did come around to liking Cooper Saxe in Power Book 2 Ghost, but with 9 seasons gone of Power, he had a good run and that was his 9 lives. The suicide that also followed was brutal and gut-wrenching, but we're going to get to that in a bit more detail as we run through the breakdown, Easter eggs, and clues of all things Power Book 2 Ghost, Season 3, Episode 8. Now, we pick up from where we left off after where Dinah was arrested by Blanca Rodriguez, although Davis is on a roof, a little drunk. He's been waiting 28 years for his brother to be released, but now that he was out, he wanted nothing to do with Davis. Now, this moment in time, Davis wasn't aware that Dinah had been arrested until he got a phone call from Monet. But with him being drunk, he was in no state to represent Diana, so Cooper Saxe thought he'd seize on the opportunity and said he'll take care of it. Meanwhile, he received a text from Tariq who said he had some news for him. Now, over at the precinct, Jenny Sullivan and Blanca Rodriguez were pressing Diana, who thought her arrest had something to do with Salim, a story which I don't think is over with, and I'm going to come back to in just a moment, because when Cane finds out Salim isn't who he said he is, and how he knows about Diana selling out at the candy store, I'm sure he's going to want words with Salim, fake Freeman. Now, Diana plays hardball because being a Tejada, they do their homework, but Blanca Rodriguez throws a surname right back. When the judge looks at her surname, he's going to see a long list of criminals with a drug-dealing past. So while Dinah was being pressed by law enforcement, Tariq tells Davis Saxe is their CI, and Davis knows the rules of the streets. Saxe had to go, and so he pulls out the strap, which is a side we haven't seen from Davis, but something we definitely knew he had. He used to run the streets with his brother Theo until he took the rap for a manslaughter Davis committed, so he was angry, but Tariq calmed him down because they had to play it in a way Saxe wouldn't know they were onto him. Now at the precinct, Diana questions whether they wanted Tariq St Patrick or Monet Tejada, and Jenny Sullivan and Blanca Rodriguez look at each other in a way where they believe they've got them, and Monet had a right to be worried. When Zeke died, she did Diana dirty. She said she had no issues if Drew or Cane got roped up, but she really was worried what Diana would say. Now Cane goes to see Effie, and shortly after Tariq walks through the door to let them know that the feds are building a RICO, but notice Tariq is still keeping one card really close to his chest. He still hasn't told anyone Lauren is alive. Now with Cane and Effie, she lets him know that she was dealing at the candy store, and this goes back to my point about Salim. I wouldn't be surprised if Cane paid him a visit. But on their relationship, let's just say, Effie really was grateful that Cane paid for her tuition, and we finally see what the writers have been building up all season, Cane and Effie getting together. Now here's where it starts to get messy for Cooper Saxe. He's here to represent Dinah Tejada, but he's also working as a CI for Jenny and Blanca, and now that Davis knows, he doesn't want him anywhere near his client on his own.
Okay, Diana, first off, from now on you only talk to me. Us.
So during their meeting with Diana, both Davis and Saxe were playing their own games, and Diana was caught in the middle, and she wasn't sure what to do. So just as she was about to spill the beans to Saxe, Davis drops his coffee all over to Saxe, and slides over a note to Diana, which reads, "Put Saxe on Effie, trust me." Now the following day we pick up with Effie and Cane, where Effie does that thing with her lips, but I can never tell with Effie if she's serious about Cane, or is she with him for her own benefit.
When you do decide to go there with the guy, just make sure you're doing it for you, alright?
In season 2, she did make a point to Diana about when she gets with a guy, make sure she does it for her own benefit, but I think she is kind of dependent on Cane in more ways than one. But here's where Tariq puts the wheels in motion while Cane hid in the bathroom. He told Effie that he needed to make a drop for her, but she only agreed when Tariq agreed to give her 1 brick a week. But business was actually being put on pause because of this RICO. This was a plan that was being set up by Monet, Davis, and Tariq St Patrick to throw law enforcement down the wrong direction. Funnily enough, we've seen this from Monet before. Monet never tells anybody the full plan, she only tells them what they need to know, which is probably why she works so well with Tariq. In season 2, she never told Cane the full plan about killing Lorenzo, and in season 3, she never told Dinah about deading Detective Whitman, so she warns Cane. Effie needs to think their business as usual, but that's not all.
No, we can't trust them white boys on Wall Street. You gave our money to a bunch of motherfuckers who never want to see us do well, ever.
While all this was going down, there was still an issue that Tariq wasn't aware about, the Ponzi scheme. But Monet knew full well she couldn't trust them men in suits on Wall Street, and she wanted her money back. So Braden had to deal with his investor. Now, one thing Braden had to do was come clean to Tariq about Weston Holdings being a Ponzi scheme, because he couldn't deal with this on his own, especially because one thing that was at risk was Tariq's trust fund. This is something I think we're now used to seeing with Tariq. The writers always have a way of throwing him some more issues to deal with, so he says he's tired of being on defense, it's about time they went on offense, which is something Monet was also doing from her end. We saw Monet visiting Lucas Weston to tell him when she calls, he gets on the phone. When she has questions, he answers them, and the second she wants her money back, she gives it to him. Although Lucas plays it off cool, I don't think he realizes who he's messing with, but I think he's going to find out soon enough. But we are going to wrap things up with the Ponzi scheme and Drew and Gordo, and then we're going to come back to the main event. So at Tate's political debate, we had the Westons and RSJ. Lucas had his eye on Tate because it was always good to have someone with influence on your side. But this raises questions with Harper, who Tate wants to marry, because this only enhances his image in the public eye. Now as RSJ walks out of the debate, Tariq gives him the news that Weston Holdings is a Ponzi scheme, and let's just say, RSJ isn't too pleased, because he was about to walk away from Weston Holdings until Tariq shady ass pulled him back in. RSJ said that he's got into the position that he's in by doing things the right way, but they were both fucked, so they had to work together. So at the meeting with Lucas Weston, he was just about to tell RSJ it was a lie that Braden was telling to cover up his and Tariq's drug dealing ways on Wall Street, until RSJ told him, stop talking. Now he threatened Lucas by calling the SEC unless he received every single penny back of his investment, Tariq's trust fund, and the Tejada's cash.
You? Guess you think this is the hood. Guess what? It is not.
This whole world is the hood, eh?
Tariq said the whole world is the hood, and he's right. Men in suits in the boardroom conducting shady deals with contracts and papers, or guys in the streets, who's worse? At least in the streets you know what the rules are, but with financial institutions and men like Lucas Weston, who rob hard-earned money from people like RSJ, now that's something that also happens in real life. What I also think Tariq means by the world is the hood, is that Lucas will definitely face his own consequences if he doesn't pay up, and I think we all know what that means. Now with Drew, questions were beginning to be asked about Gordo, and even though he was able to play it off cool at first, watching Ev come out as for the first ever NBA player on live TV with Jamel Hill caught him at the wrong time. He was smashing everything up and emotions were clearly running high. I also don't think the placement of his sketchbook was a coincidence. Drew is definitely done with this life, and he really is about to go down a dark path. This was further fueled by him bumping into Ev and his new boyfriend, and when Drew let his emotions out, he said that he found someone that was just right for him. But everything got so fucked up, he's now gone. So while Ev has everything, he has nothing. Now this was a meltdown from Drew that ended up being uploaded to a page called Greatest Public Meltdowns, and where the Castillos realized Drew was lying about Gordo, and I think they've already probably got a hunch Gordo is probably dead, but they want another conversation with Drew, something that will surely create a rift and the war with the Castillos. Now back to Dinah at the precinct. We saw her carry out the plan set in motion by Monet, Davis, and Tariq St Patrick, and Dinah does what Dinah does. She's great at lying because she's been brought up and mentored by one of the biggest we've seen, Monet Tejada. But the main reason for her talking to Saxe and not Davis was to put Saxe on Effie, which was always going to be a false lead. A false lead that he took to Blanca Rodriguez and Jenny Sullivan with, and one which they acted on. But Blanca did warn Saxe this will blow his cover, so it was only going to be a matter of time until we saw his death, especially when Davis told Theo that Saxe was working with the feds. Something Theo told Davis in season 2 was that he'll do anything to keep him out of prison, and he was about to make good on his promise, especially because he was lying to Davis about how he was responding to his treatment. Unfortunately, Theo only had about a month left to live, and so he knew what he had to do to protect Davis. Now, as we're talking about Theo protecting Davis, I think we're seeing Cane trying to do the same with Effie. I do think he was indirectly trying to tell her not to trust Tariq, but that conversation was of course interrupted by Drew and the events that we've already been through, but the wheels were already in motion and Monet warned Cane, do not tell Effie. Now this is where we saw law enforcement and Junior watching Effie as she collected her orders. So as Effie was making her drops, she had no idea. She thought she was doing her regular drops with product because she wasn't in on the plan. So while she was caught by the feds and as they raided No Cap All Fraps warehouse, all they found was sugar.
Replace his bricks with sugar. You never even know.
This was a move that was taken straight from Cane's playbook, the powdered sugar move in season 2. except this time, it was to throw law enforcement off their Rico, and it worked, for now, because the worst was yet to come. Now after this setup, Effie actually understood why Tariq and Monet did what they did, but it was actually quite funny because this was the moment where Tariq found out about Effie and Cane. But with Saxe's cover being blown, and Jenny being burned by the setup, Jenny told Saxe she couldn't ask for protection for Saxe, and that meant he had to find his own way to survive, pretty much what he's been doing for 9 seasons.
I know where Tasha and Yaz are, and if I die, that information does too.
Apparently Saxe is the only one who knows where Tasha and Yaz are, and if he died, that information dies with him too. But correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure Tamika knows as well, because she was the one who moved Tasha and Yaz, and also Grandma Estelle earlier in season 3. But shit was about to get real for Cooper Saxe, and Davis and Tariq knew it too, especially when Davis got the phone call from the clinic. This was the moment Davis knew Theo was lying about his treatment, and where they put 2 and 2 together, Theo had taken Saxe. But Davis had a hunch where Theo would take Saxe, the same location they were in episode 7. Now as Davis and Tariq approach Theo and Saxe, Davis tells Theo drop the gun, and Tariq does his best to convince him as well, because killing Saxe would only make things worse for Davis, but also because Cooper Saxe also said he knows where Tasha and Yasmin are, but Theo knows that Saxe has to go, and so he puts a bullet in Cooper Saxe. Now what made this scene even more gut-wrenching was what followed. For as much as Davis pleaded with Theo to give him the gun, Theo said he was free and he shot himself, as Davis and Tariq couldn't believe it. Davis was in tears and Tariq was just lost for words at what he just saw. Not only because Cooper Saxe was dead, I don't think he gives a shit about Saxe. The location of Tasha and Yasmin died with him, according to Saxe anyway, because I'm sure Tamika knows as well. But this is where we say goodbye to one of the OGs of Power, who's been with us for 9 years, and it really was sad to see Cooper Saxe go because of how long he's been with us, but I do think it was the right time with Junior's rise and the introduction of Michael Ealy in season 4. Now the night wasn't over. In Kane's words, he was checking Effie's vents when she got a knock at the door about a gas leak, but it wasn't a gas engineer, it was Blanca Rodriguez, here to arrest Effie on attempted murder, and as she took her away, this is what we've all been waiting to see, Effie coming face to face with Lauren, and the look on Effie's face was as if she just saw a ghost, but also Cane. This was the moment Cane realized Lauren was also alive, and he'll probably think Tariq had something to do with it, but now that the card that Tariq was keeping so close to his chest is out the bag, this is going to cause chaos and a whole lot of betrayal. Now in the midst of this, we also have to remember Dinah was also released, and she told Monet she wanted out of the game, and also out of New York. She wanted to transfer to Spellman as Semester, but not while Monet's in control. Diana knows that she'll never be in full control of her life for as long as Monet's around, so what's the next move? Will Effie be given a deal? Considering she's a straight A student who wants out the game, could she snitch? Will she blow Tariq St Patrick and the Tejadas up? I still feel someone has to take the rap by the end of season 3. And I don't necessarily think it's gonna be Effie. I am sticking by my guns and my theory. I think everybody's gonna realize Monet's the problem and she has to go. But drop all your thoughts down below and let me know your thoughts on episode 8, especially after Effie's arrest, Cane finding out Lauren's alive, and as we say goodbye to Theo Rollins and one of the Power OGs, Cooper Saxe.